Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us again for this episode. And I wanted to start out and just say a big, huge thank you. There's some great people who've really helped out. I'm doing some work up in Vacaville, California, and it's an underserved community where people are really struggling financially and health-wise. We're seeing an epidemic of diabetes and health problems that are devastating, right? So, when I saw their break room up at this company, Vacaville Fruit Company, a little shout out to them because they care about their employees and they're helping. I'm not sponsored by them, but I'm consulting with them right now, trying to help out. I felt overwhelmed, and so I looked at their break room, and and I couldn't believe it. Everything was garbage food. So these people who work hard all day and are sleep deprived and stressed, they're not getting good nutrition. So people are calling it sick. You start having other health problems, losing people to diabetes complications. And so the owner of the company reached out to me and said, hey, I don't care what it costs. I want to help these people. They got them continuous glucose monitors. They paid for labs and for them to go through my program. And, I reached out to some people in the community and said, hey, can we help? Because it takes a community. So who responded? Health Code. Dr. Ben Bickman, who is a hero of mine, said, hey, well, how can I help? I can lecture, I can come and do whatever, let's get them some product and see what they can do. So Health Code Shakes helped out. Rosette's, who's the wife of my partner on the Low Carb MD podcast, she said, let me send some snack, low carb snacks, cake mix where they could celebrate birthdays and have cookies and things like that. And of course, my sponsor here is Simply Snacking. Very proud. She sent them a ton of samples, and I'm seeing their continuous glucose monitors staying flat. And I'm seeing sugars go from 246 down to less than 100 consistently. And so I just wanted to give a shout out. I'm only sponsored by Simply Snacking, but everyone else jumped in to help. Ben Bakikio, 15 Minutes to Fitness, he jumped in and said, hey, I'll lecture them on exercise. I really want to help. So what I'm saying is all these great people are coming out of the woodwork and wanting to help a community. And that's what it's going to take. We have to invest in other people. And that's what this podcast is about. And I feel very passionate about that, and I'm proud of these companies. And I want you to support these companies because they're giving, they're helping, they're like-minded. Sue at Simply Snack, and I talked to her and said, look, this is a small podcast. We're just getting it off the ground. It's going to be a net loss for you probably for a while, right? And she says, I believe in your cause. I believe in helping people. And so when you're combined with people like this, you can't fail. So I just want to give a shout out to those companies. They didn't do it for me to talk on the podcast. No one even mentioned it. They said, how can I help? And I think if more of us are like that, we're going to be successful. We're going to do better, and we're going to help more people. So thank you for listening, and thank you for your continued support. Hello and welcome back to the Life's Best Medicine podcast. Today I'm excited. I have a guy that I've been seeing his presence on Twitter mostly, and what he's doing with his podcast and all that kind of stuff. I think we're like-minded in a lot of ways. So funny enough, we both reached out to each other yesterday, and it's like, let's do it at 5:30 in the morning. So that's what works best for both of us West Coasters. Usually I'm dealing with Tro on the East Coast on my other podcast, so I'm up early anyways. So Joel Lopez, welcome, man. It's good to have you. Hey, tell me about you and tell us how you started Read Your Keys and what the meaning is behind all that.
Well, I guess that's kind of well, thanks for having me on, first of all, Brian.
Oh, man, it's great to have you, man.
I've seen your, on the timeline. I saw you, I think you popped up when you interviewed Murph. And then it was like, oh, let me check out Brian. And then you had my boy Tyler Tote on. Shout out to Tyler. But as far as,
yeah, it's funny, huh?
Yeah, as far as my story, I've always kind of considered myself just like a regular dude, just, when I was coming up, I played sports. Football was a big part of my life. And then, when that time was over, it's like all I really wanted to do was teach and coach. It's like, I want to be be a high school teacher, teach history or something, and then, you know, coach teenage boys. That was kind of my goal. Met a lovely young girl, and it was just like, eventually it was like, man, like, I'm not gonna make any money if I just become a teacher. It's like, that's, you know, she, I don't know. I think I want to give her more than what I'd be able to give on a teacher's salary. So we get married. And then from there, you know, working my regular job. But, you know, Read Your Keys basically came from when I was playing football. Like, it really mattered to me. Like, that was like really important to me. On my best day, I was a below average athlete. But I played really hard. And then finally we got some new coaches that came in, and the coach was like, you know, watching me work. I'm on the scout team. So the scout team is basically, hey, these are the first teamers. You give these guys the look, like you make sure you kind of go hard, so they kind of get a feel for what it's like going to be on a game or whatever. And coach calls me over, Lopez, come over here. And so I run over. Yeah, what's up, coach? He's like, I want you to watch this guy right here. And he points to the guard. It's like, wherever he goes, I want you to follow him, because I see you're kind of running all around. Because basically the ball would get hiked. I played for years already, so it wasn't like I was new to it. Like, this is like, I'm gonna be a junior in high school, so I've been playing since I was in junior high. And so I basically, before, I would just, hey, see ball, go get ball. That was my kind of strategy. But he's like, I want you to watch the guard. Wherever he goes, you go. And then all of a sudden it kind of slowed down, because there's like so many things that kind of enter in. Like when people say like they don't like football, like, I get it, because like there's so much that goes on. It's like, yeah, I can understand. There's rules, there's all these things going on, but it really just narrowed my focus. And then so I would see, like, once I would do what he told me, it would go from having, you know, all this information coming at you to like, all I need to do is just pay attention to this right here. And then, you know, next play, it's like, I'm watching them, it's like, oh, it's leading me right to where the ball is supposed to go. And so that was like a big, like, oh man, like, why didn't I know this earlier? And so that kind of was like, in every spot on the football field, regardless of where you are, has like these key reads. That's why you'll hear coaches like, hey, read your keys, read your keys. It's like, yeah, you know, play with your eyes, watch what's going on. There's information that's out there, but, you know, it gets lost in the chaos. But if you're reading it correctly, or if somebody has told you, or if you've been paying attention, then you can find those keys, and it's going to help you to be successful. And so that's kind of was read your keys was for me. And it applies in, you know, I think in all facets of life. There's keys there for you if you're willing to be coachable and humble yourself. Because for me, it's like, yeah, I've been playing since I was a kid. Like, what are you going to tell me? But it was like, no, this guy knows what he's talking about. I better listen to. And there was even more. Like, once I was ready for that, it's like, okay, let's give you more and more and more and more. And, you know, when you're hungry and you want to do well and you're a limited athlete, like, you need those things. And so that was kind of the I don't know, the start of a lot of things. I've always looked for, like, hey, what's the key here? Once I found that, I was like, well, what's the key that I need to learn in this situation that's going to help me to propel me forward, to help propel my family forward, or, you know, in any way that I can apply it. And you'll find, my wife laughs at me, but I apply football to a lot of things in life. To me, football, like, in so many aspects, that's how I view the lens of life.
Yeah, I think that's so great, man. And man, when you're talking, I just laugh because, you know, I was one of those athletes too. I was the smallest guy on the defensive line. I played nose guard, right? So I'd have to bulk up to be next to my big, huge friends. But you're right. Reading your keys, we'd watch films. We go watch. Look at this guy. When there's going to be a pass, the guy in front of you is going to be on his heels. And he's going to run. You can see all the blood go out of his hands because he's pushing so hard.
Exactly.
So those little things you have to cue in. And I think in life, that's such a valuable thing. And also saying, hey, look, I'm not the most gifted guy. I'm going to have to work harder, and I'm going to have to figure it out. I'll be in the gym first. I'll stay late. I'll show that I want to do this job or whatever you're doing, you know?
I love that you brought up the stance. It's like, yeah, that's like a big one. It's like, oh, look at he's looking heavy in his hands right there. You know, be aware, pay attention. And I think that's a big part of it, right? If you're paying attention, and you're open to it, then you can see it, because it gets really easy to just kind of get stuck in your
Yeah,
own
and you like you're saying, as like you're cued in, like like when you're rushing, you get by too easy. You say, "Oh, there's gonna be
yeah,
that happened for a
yeah.
reason." I think in life, so many times, there's misdirections, there's all these different things, and you wonder why don't they just tell you what they're gonna do, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
be straight up with you rather than misdirect you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're tuned in, you say, "This is a misdirection. This is not. It shouldn't go this way," and you kind of have a gut sense that something's wrong, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the podcast was a long time coming for me. I'd thought about that for years, but I don't know if it's perfectionism or just like, hey, I'm a regular guy who wants to listen to me talk, like there's I don't know if that's a false humility or whatever you want to say. um that took years, and I ended up going to a conference, and it was a prophetic conference, and I'd never experienced that before. I mean, I wouldn't say that I grew up in the church. Like my grandfather is the one that kind of introduced the faith to the family, and passed it down to my daddy, and then I got it. But I wouldn't say like we weren't like weekly Bible studies, daily devotional type of family. It was just like, no, this is our faith. This is what we believe. My dad's a good man, but there was no like, I'm not some theologian or anything like that. It's just like, oh, I love God. That's kind of how it was. And so the prophetic was something that was like very strange to me. It was like, oh, like this is new. This is strange. And so that somebody had spoken some things over me, and I was like, oh, maybe I should see what this is about and kind of go forward. And I think the Christian walk is some kind of, I don't know, bore, but it really is a great adventure if you're open and willing to listen. And I mean, it's gotten me here speaking to you. Like, I don't know how else we would have crossed paths, really, right? Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
crazy, man. It's crazy because this podcast I felt called to do, and it was something I was seeing, this attack on Christianity, on faith, on hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that. I said, how come no one's really talking about this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I see you're talking about it. You have people like Murph and, Ty, great people. And you got, these guys have great stories. We got to get their story out.
Mm-hmm.
So to have a platform to share what you're doing, because I think there's a lot of guys out there who go, yeah, this Christian thing is not for me. I have to give up all this stuff, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
about rules and regulations,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't realize the relationship and how the motivation. And I think going through times like this, I think I've had so many people tell me I don't know how I would make it without my faith. You
Mm-hmm.
could hear on the podcast, it's a recurrent theme where people lean on their faith during hard times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, for you in the medical field, I mean, it's a very rational place, right? And so, do you find that that's a challenge? Because the places where I found the most resistance was like in college. Yeah, that'd probably be the most, and it was a challenge for me because it always meant so much to me. And it was like, oh, the more educated you are, the less religious. And so it's like, what? So my faith is bad. And so that was kind of my first time. I don't know if like not I never really like struggled with my faith, because I kind of always accepted it. I question things for sure. Like I question a lot of things, but it was always like foundational. And I always came back to it. And most of us have a faith walk. It's kind of like, it goes up and down. You're closer, you're farther. You're like, oh, I'm living like a knucklehead right now. Things like that. But I think it was in the university where it was like, that's the first time I felt like things were like hostile to my faith.
Yeah, it's true. I think a lot of people, if you look at the data, that's what it shows. Most of these kids that they do their Bible studies and go to high school group and all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and they get to college and boom, it changes because you're surrounded by people who have that are openly hostile towards you
Mm-hmm.
and your beliefs. So if you talk about your belief, and it's a hard thing, trust me. I mean, I struggle with that still. It's like there's certain things I see and I'm like, oh, I want to say something, but this isn't going to go over very well. I just
Yeah.
know it won't. So you're in a college class and you say, well, I believe in faith, and everyone laughs at you, and they
Mm-hmm.
you get a bad grade
Yeah.
because they don't believe what you believe. And so it's a
Yeah.
hard thing. So, and it's the irony really doesn't, it's amazing to me that it's the people who say you have to be open-minded and Christians are narrow-minded. They're the same ones who are criticizing you for believing what you believe. And it's all, I've always seen that. I go, this is like in the church where, rightly so, most of the, a lot of the time is being hypocrites. But it's like, who's the hypocrite? Like I see
Yeah.
hypocrisy all around me.
Oh
I'm thinking,
yeah,
no one calls
exactly.
this out when you see it
Yeah.
and you go, I've just seen it my entire life. And you think, wow, this is kind of interesting how society and people tell you it's like this, you cannot be edgy, and I hear this a lot, and that's part of the reason I did the podcast. I'm glad you brought that up. Is
Mhm.
like people say, well, if you're a doctor, you should know better. How can you believe in this hocus pocus crazy
Mhm.
stuff? But you and I have had experiences, and you see, like when someone speaks prophecy over you and they go, this is what's going to happen, and it happens, you go,
Mhm.
wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
amazing. I've had stuff where people go, you're going to be doing this. I'm like, okay, sure, right.
Sure,
And then here
whatever.
I am, I'm in Vietnam when I didn't think I'd be in Vietnam. It's like, here I am,
Uh,
and doing a medical outreach and things like that. So yeah, it's crazy.
um, when you think like people said crazy stuff that remind when, so I was young when I met my wife. Um, I would, I came from very middle class, very middle class. I got invited with some buddies to go on a cruise. Junior year in high school, so I'm young, and this is a big deal because like my family, no one else ever did anything like that. We weren't really big travelers. Like for us, if we were going on vacation, it was like, oh, we're gonna go down to Mexico and see family. That was kind of standard for that's what we're gonna do on vacation. So for me to go on a cruise, that was a lot of money. I had money saved up, and I was gonna use it to buy a car. But I was like, well, when else am I gonna have a chance to go on a cruise with my buddies? Like that's this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I was at my grandpa's house, and one of my tias was there, and she said something like, what if you meet your wife on the cruise? And I'm like, lady, I'm 16. I don't have any business meeting a wife. Like all I'm trying to do is play football. Like what are you talking about? And then it was like, oh yeah, like I ended up meeting my wife on the cruise. It's like this is crazy. So it's like, yeah, like you never know, like the things that you're gonna hear that come true. It's like this is so far out of left field. It's like, oh, that could only be God. Like that could only be God.
Yeah, there's so much stuff like doing what I'm doing now and all the twists and turns and all the crazy. You see this road, and I think that's it. A lot of people see it and they go, okay, if there's a God, why does this happen? Then you hear the miracles that come out of that bad thing
Mm-hmm.
and how you can help that next person along. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a big part of it, that you can be like, for you, it shows your heart. You want to be a teacher and you want to be a coach and you want to help young guys and get them on track and keep them on track. We need more people like that. I think our society would be a lot different if you have people who breathe into others, go, look, here's, it's just like that, reading your keys. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone told you that and it's stuck and you go, okay, I get it now. Like all
Mm-hmm.
those years of playing, you don't get it. I'm telling you, I've had
Mm-hmm.
stuff where when you understand, one day I remember as the defensive line guys, we'd be lifting hard and we'd be working out before everyone else. And all the other guys were at home relaxing. And we're like, this is like, we were upset about it. We go, this is ridiculous. We got to talk to this guy, the coach. And the coach said, look, I believe in you guys. And when everyone else is tired and they want to go home and they're done, you guys are going to still keep going because you have that grit and you're working hard and you're going to be in better shape than all the other guys. I want that for you guys. I was like, then when we saw it from his perspective, we go, okay, cool. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't mind being in the gym later than everyone else anymore,
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to see it for what it is and not just think, I just want to go home and not deal
Yeah.
with this stuff.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect example, right? Like as far as faith, it's like I I came to the conclusion for me. I can't come to that conclusion for you. Like if I'm grinding away in the weight room and you're not, well, hey, I want you to be in the weight room with me because like when it comes down to it, we're still one. But come during practice, I'm gonna mop the floor with you during practice. So you're gonna have to deal with that. So you can see the results that kind of come through that. So applying that's like, well, you don't believe what I believe. Okay, well, hey, I think that my faith makes my marriage stronger. I think it makes my family stronger. I think it makes me content regardless of circumstances. So it's like, yeah, I can be upset. I can be, like, oh, man, something didn't go my way here, or things are going my way here. but that doesn't change who I am, because I'm grounded in my identity, and I'm joyful, regardless of the circumstances, if things are going my way or they're not. So it's like, okay, you can look at those results and say, okay, like, yeah, I want that. And I mean, that would be my hope, that's my the way that my life is coming across.
Yeah, I think that's our responsibility too. Say, look, let me live my life in a way. I'm not going to be out telling you what to do. But hopefully, I have a lot of people come to me and go, man, how come you and your wife get along so well? You guys are like newlyweds still. It's like, I mean, it's not me. Obviously, people who know me know it's not me.
Yeah.
They know it's not all her. It's just like, hey, when you live by faith, you say there's certain things I'm not going to cross certain lines, right? I'm not going to treat you with disrespect. I'm not going to go out and start, looking for other women. All those kind of things where people. You see the disaster. I've seen the disasters my entire life. I'm like, man, I'm glad I chose the path I did, or it was chosen for me. Maybe, I don't know. But, when you say that, I say, hey, let me stand up for my faith and what I believe. But it's really, these days it's very challenging, as you know. I think sometimes you just want to be quiet and say, okay, I don't see it the way everyone else does. And you see everyone else running off a cliff, like you're saying. If I have something that can help you, I want to share it with you, not because I get it, because everyone thinks, oh, if you convert all these people, you get to go to heaven. It's like, well, it's already, my ticket's already paid.
Yeah, that's I don't that I didn't pay that price. Somebody else paid that price.
Yeah, and you don't think about it that way. I don't think about it. Why do you do this? Why do you do volunteer work? Why do you put your life? I'm like, you know what? It's like what I'm called to do. I don't know. I enjoy it. I get, as you know, when you help people, you get so much more reward. And I think that you see guys like Ty, right? This is the Ty show too. But we see that. You see that light. You see that happiness, that joy. He's loving. He's adopting kids. He's doing all these things. He's putting good into the world. And like, there'll be people who don't like him because of his faith.
Yeah. And I mean, most people of faith will say that will know that, hey, I don't earn my way to heaven. This is just this is just the Father. This is an extension of the Father's heart, and this is the way it's expressing itself. There is a need, and if I'm put on here on this earth for something, I would think that I'm some kind of tool that God can use to reach somebody. So whether it be, adopting foster kids, going on missions, or, encouraging somebody, because sometimes that's all that needs is, you're that one person that believed in somebody and encouraged them. And it was like, that's what they needed to push them forward. You were the right person at the right time. It's like, it's just such a big mystery, and we can't see all the pieces. And it's such a big infinite. I always think it's like, how am I going to wrap my mind around God? Like me, like I tell, because I'll explain it to my kids. It's like an ant can't understand you. They can't wrap their mind around you. Like how am I going to wrap my mind around God, the creator of the universe, who set the boundaries of the seas, bringing life from dust. It's like, you can understand that God who stands outside of time, but stepped into time for me. Like, can you understand that? Who's the Alpha through the Omega? He is in the past, the present, and the future. I don't know. You can't wrap your mind around that.
Yeah, and yet people want it. They'll say, and that's another reason. It's funny you bring out every reason I started this podcast, but really people would argue with me on Twitter and they go, "Prove your faith." I'm like, I can't really prove it. It just is, right? I can't prove. Like, why does this guy hit the golf ball farther than anyone else? It's maybe because he practices harder, but maybe he just has some innate instinct that gets it. He has the right whatever mechanics. But it is interesting how often there's attacks as far as because like I don't get it. I think it's a weird thing almost, because I think some people don't like it that things are going your way and that you're a good friend, like one of my good friends are doing well. I'm happy for them. Right. If your podcast does well, I'm happy for you. If I lose 3 followers and they go to your podcast, okay, I still live my life. And if people are being fed by you more than me, then that's cool. If someone wants to listen to a different low carb podcast, cool. I mean, I think you have to, everyone goes to a different pastor because one's a cool guy and one's very formal, and whatever fits your, whatever you like, whatever speaks to you,
Yeah, I know. I'm the same way. It's like, I'm not for everybody. I know I'm not for everybody. And so if somebody is being helped by somebody else, like, great. Like there's enough for everybody. And like my podcast is really like, if I had one, it's nice to know that people listen and appreciate. but I just did it because I liked doing it. Like I like talking to I like talking to people. I like talking to you. It's like I see the stuff that you post on your timeline. It's like, oh, this is what's happening with my friends in Cuba. It's like, yeah, I've heard stories of what's going on over there before this, and it's just like I've never been there. I'd like to learn, and from the stuff that I've heard and the stories, it's just like, man, we are so lucky to be here in America. Like we have no idea.
Man,
And
we're blessed, man. I'll tell you, when I was there, but again, the craziness, it was one of my biggest life learning experiences, right? If you ask
mhm,
me where I would not go, it's probably Cuba. And I went there and I was like, oh my gosh, love the people. But
mhm,
you see the oppression, you see there's certain things you can't do, there's places you can't go, you can't say certain things. And there's this whole and I thought, man, America will never be like that. Then I'm looking around now saying, oh my goodness,
I see
we
it.
are going that way.
Mhm.
I mean, and people don't realize because it sounds romantic and all this stuff, but you go and you see how people live.
Yeah,
But what I'll tell you is if you want to know people of faith, you took a look to the Cuban people, man.
yeah,
I'm like, how can you be happy? Like in this, I'm looking at this, I'm like, are you not like,
mhm,
are you kidding me? How do you put up with this? Like you get one
right,
bag of beans a month and that's it. And you're a
mhm,
doctor and you think, you know, I think at that time was, I think the dentists were making $29 a month.
mhm.
And the doctors were making like $42, something like that. And they had just gotten a raise from 39 to $42 a month.
That's crazy.
It's insane. So you want free education, you make $42 a month, and they couldn't do anything. All of them worked as taxi drivers at night. And
Mhm,
then their passion was to help people, but then they didn't have medicine to help the people. So they were all frustrated. Then when I brought medicine, these doctors were crying
mhm.
because they go, I have medicines to help. I have antibiotics now to help my patient. Because
Yeah,
otherwise, you have a urinary infection, but come back next week. Maybe the pharmacy had like 3 things in it, right? And
yeah,
they talk about these great hospital systems. So when you see that, but all these guys, they like, really, one of them sat down with me. They go, Brian, look, for us, we're thankful every day that we get our food. If we have beans, we're happy. If we have
mhm,
rice, we're happy that we have some that God provided. And God always provides, so we live by faith. And I
mhm.
said, how do you live by such faith, though? And they said, how else can we live, right?
Yeah,
And so they say, well, you say, well, we had, Mexican food last night. We had Italian the other night. Let's have this tonight, right? Because
yeah,
you have so many choices.
right.
We take what we got and we're happy with it. Just having a baseball was a huge thing, or a laptop. And I had an old laptop, and you saw the blessings it was. I even talked about it on one of the podcasts because it
Mhm.
really impacted me that, man, I think all kids should spend a week in Cuba and then come back and go, okay, I'm going to kiss
Yeah,
the flag, man. I'll
yeah,
kiss the ground where we
yeah.
would live.
Well, yeah, I think maybe that's why, I'm Christian, but I think kids that grow up Mormon and they go off on these missions, they get to see, other parts of the world, and that really, um, it just forms a worldview of how lucky they are to be in America. Like I can't imagine, eating beans and rice all the time, like, and I'm a bean eating rice eating. I come from the bean eating rice eating people, but like, I was like, man, I need, I want some steak too. And those experiences that you have over there, no, actually what I was thinking is like, you think like you're in America, and they're like, oh, like if you just change your mindset, then you can make it in America. But if you had that same mindset in Cuba, well, it doesn't really matter, because there's a boot on you, and you could I'm sure there's plenty of people who have multi-million dollar ideas there in Cuba, but those people are oppressed. You want to talk about systematic oppression? Well, you're looking at it, buddy. Like that's what that looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And I learned a lot there because I was thinking, well, what about these nice hotels? Like I say that people's houses, right? So I got to really
mhm,
talk to the people, but they would whisper in your ear. Like it was not like anyone was going to talk out loud because if their neighbors here, they turned each
mhm,
other in. Everyone's watching each other,
mhm,
but also all the friends were helping each other, right? And the craziest thing is they have capitalism undercurrent, meaning
mhm,
if I'm a farmer and I have extra, milk, I'm gonna like sneak some out and sell and trade it to you for some fish because you're a fisherman, and I'll
mhm.
trade this because otherwise you can't get it.
Yeah,
But what they do is they catch one guy and they go, okay, where'd you get the milk? Oh, Joel gave it to me. Okay, then let's go talk to Joel. You owe me $5. You owe me $5. And they collect $5 from everyone down the line and go, okay,
mm,
well, so it's those kind of things where you see the oppression, but there's also a joy in that. And it's amazing. And as a crazy
mhm,
thing is
mhm,
you may have seen me post this, but they said, we're praying for your persecution, right? I'm like,
mhm.
thanks, guys. Really? They go, then you'll know what you believe.
Yeah,
Because these guys, like seriously, they have churches underground and they're hiding, but when they're together, man, the power, if you want to talk about the Holy Spirit and power, man, there's no place like, I've never experienced something like that, like in
Yeah.
Cuba. And like you said, like sometimes you go, I should do this for this guy, or it's just, we have so many crazy stories of what happened down there. How God just said, hey, this guy needs this. And you say, hey, do you need this? Yes. Oh my, like the guy's on the ground crying because he needs something so bad. And so, it's just, but just kind, decent people. And it's brutal. Excuse me. Like you're saying, is these guys come over to Florida and now they're multimillionaires, right? Some of these guys are just doing very, very well, but and they love America and they're so into that because they know it gave them, they had no chance. And that's why people, trust me, I spent time in El Salvador, Guatemala, all these places. They want to come over because they go, look, if I'm a 22-year-old kid there, I'm thinking, I have no future. What am I going to do? I'll sneak across. I'll try something to get a better life. So I understand the mindset for sure.
Yeah, I think there's so many levels to it, and that's why I appreciate what you're doing on the podcast. I guess that's what kind of where I came from too, is there's not a lot of voices that are, we'll just say pro faith and are just telling their testimonies, right? Like I was listening to your podcast and you're talking about the Holy Spirit and how you were sitting in church and you just got the tug to hand over a guy some money, and people will be like, well, what's the big deal? But it's like, I think one of the big challenges for us in the West, like you talk about like persecutions, like what do you really believe? But it's just like, the big thing here is I don't want to look like a fool. I think that's our big thing, right? Like it's so nice. Like if I open up and I tell this guy, hey, I'm supposed to give you some money, like, I don't know about you, but once you said that, I was glad that you said that, because it's like, oh yeah, I feel that thing where it's like you get kind of sweaty in the back of your neck.
Yeah, the feeling, man, because I was there. I'm not laughing. I'm reliving it while you're talking because I'm like, I was sweating. My wife's like, are you okay? I'm like, oh gosh, I just felt like I don't want to, like, that was my fear. It's like, this guy's going, what are you talking about, dude? Right? Like, I just feel like I should do this, but I don't know why. It just doesn't make sense. And I can't pay my bills right now, but hey, man, and I'm not that type of person generally. I don't just say, hey, let me get, it's not financial use. I was like, hey, I can help you, work in your yard or do something nice for you. But my money's like that. And I realized at that time too, that was a fear. It's like finances have always been, I come from a middle-class family also. And so finances have always, I've had med school loans over my head and school loan, all that stuff. And so it's like, that's been my fear. And you go realize, okay, God provides, always provides.
Yeah.
Always provides. So and then when I saw the Cubans, I go, I get them. I understand what they're saying because they have to live that way. They have no other choice.
That's interesting. And in those churches, do they find a way to tithe?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. And I talked about it with Mark Hernandez, that episode. And we were in one of the worst parts of Guatemala in MS-13 area, Zona 18. And no one goes there. It's like no one goes there. And we go there and the guy goes, hey, I want you to preach to my people. We're like, what? That night, Mark's not a public speaker. And it was just, the story is worth listening to. It was a great episode. But, but we go there and speak to doctors. And we're in one of the poorest areas of Guatemala. And, they hand us an envelope and they go, that's for you. The people want you to take that. I'm like, Mark and I were like, there's no way we're taking that money. There's no way. They go, they believe that they want to bless you back, or they appreciate it. And so people don't understand that mindset, or people give it, like in the Bible, it's like the one who had nothing who gives, not the rich guy who goes, look, I'm throwing all this money out there. Look what I'm doing. Right. Because you look at these foundations, everyone's like bringing glory to themselves. Right.
Right.
But it's those people who don't have it and they go, I want to give. And then they get blessed back. It's a crazy, it's hard to understand. As a matter of fact, when I bought my house out of residency, my buddy's a financial guy. He's looking at my finances. He's like, not a good move, dude. It's not a good move. We had this thing, and I go, can I still afford to tithe and stuff? He goes, I've seen your finances. You can't afford not to. Right. So people who get it understand that what he's saying is like, you're going to need God to help you, man. You better be doing the right thing.
Right. It's really the upside down kingdom, right? It's the highest is the one that is serves. Like you serve, the one that gives is the one that receives. It's like, it makes no sense. It's like, I make $100. My obligations are $99. It's like, well, yeah, you better give, because you're cutting it close, man. You can't afford not to give. It's like, wait a minute, but I'm gonna have less for my obligations if I do this. It's like, yeah, you can't afford not to. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's and I think that is it. I think you hit it, Joel. Is that stuff we do doesn't make sense to
Mhm.
people. Like I remember my old partners going like, why do you tithe all your money away?
Mm.
Why do you do that? Why do you go to, you're paying for your own mission trips? They should pay for you to go. It's like, well, I'm going there to serve. And it's
Yeah.
like, we could use that money to help 100 people. I
Mhm.
mean, like, you know what I mean? Like someone, like just a little bit helps, and help someone get some chicken so they can raise eggs for a living, do something kind, and breathe back into the community, you know?
Well, you think about it, tithing doesn't make sense. Well, God sending his son for us doesn't make sense either. Like you're talking about a supernatural God. Like you want to understand God. Well, it's like, yeah, you're talking about the God that loved you so much that he was willing to give his son. His, he loved his son. He gave sacrificially. Like that's one of my favorite things about John 3:16 is you read it, it's like, for God so loved the world that he gave, and then you see in there that he gives, and he gives sacrificially. And that's once you realize that's powerful. It wasn't like, oh, I'm God, and he could have given whatever, right? He has all the riches, everything is his, but he gave his son. Like that costs anything. And I mean, you see it mirrored in the Old Testament with Abraham and Isaac. Like Isaac was willing to give what was most valuable to him. Like he would have gladly, slaughtered, whatever cattle or goats that he had, but it was his son that was valuable to him. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. It just doesn't make sense. That how can it be? And that's the thing is that, and for me, it's that peace that surpasses all
Mhm.
understanding. People look at you and go, how can you be calm? And like it frustrates them because like, how can you be calm right now? It's like God's in control, not me,
Yeah,
right? And you look around us. I mean, the craziness around us of
yeah,
everything that's happening. You're like, I have to ultimately believe God's in control, and
yeah.
at some point, and I think that's what I think, and that's where what faith. I think that when people say prove your faith, I think the thing is saying, hey, look, no matter how bad things get, there's going to be a better day.
Hmm.
When today it's terrible, everyone's against me, and I'm having a hard day, and Twitter, everyone wants to attack me. It's like, okay, I'll have a better day tomorrow, right? And there's a
Yeah,
better day. And then you look
yeah.
at it, and there's better days that come, but it's hard when it's all on your back and you think it's all on you. And I know a lot of guys, I have friends that go, well, it's because you're weak that you believe, because if I do it on my own. It's like, okay, good luck with that.
Yeah, yeah. Good
What
luck with
happens when
that.
the storm comes and
Yeah.
there's an earthquake and your house falls down, right? I mean, where are you going to go then? I mean, when you lose your, in my old practice, we went through a big embezzlement with our old office manager. It's like, all of a sudden you have no money in your bank account. You go, okay, now what? Right.
Yeah,
But
now
out
what?
of that, I just saw the blessings of all my friends go, what do you need, man?
Oh,
I got you,
really?
because they know your integrity, and they go, what do you need? And I didn't have to have them help me, but out of that, fruit came out of that, because I knew, sometimes, and I think this is a life lesson, is when you go through life, when things go bad, you find out who your friends are,
Hmm.
right? You really do. When you're
Yeah,
down and something happens, whatever, it's like those people who are struggling. So I would tell people listening, hey, look, if you have a friend going through a hard time, don't abandon them. Say, hey, look, how can I help you? Some people
yeah.
are just not going to learn, and they're going to struggle their whole life, and you can't really help them. But
Right.
there's a lot of people, when you're there and kind to them, when you're down and I remember in medical school, I was like, we were struggling
Hmm.
financially, and my dad goes, here's $50. I'm like, oh, thank God, man.
Yeah,
I mean, and that still that $50 impacted me, right?
you're
And
right.
like, thank God I needed that right now. That's perfect.
Yeah. I was listening to your podcast, and you mentioned that somebody was like, I don't need God. I can stand on my own 2 feet. It's like, yeah, you might be able to stand on your own 2 feet, but whose ground are you standing on?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So when I think when you see it that way, but I see guys like like happy people, and you go, what? Why are they happy? Right. I
Uh-huh.
mean, and of different faiths. I have friends of different faiths that are very happy people, and
Mhm.
they're they're
Right,
they're going
right,
along. And it's not like you have to say, hey, everyone has to do what I'm doing. I believe this is the way, because I wouldn't be following it if I didn't. Right. Like low
right.
carb, I happen to believe that works for me. Right. Okay, it
Hmm.
may not work for you. Cool. Like I'm not going to fight with you about it. It's one of those things. But if I can plant seeds, and one day you're hurting, and you go, man, maybe I'm going to try that crazy stuff he's talking about, because I
Yeah,
think that's when most people nowadays, when things are bad, is when God becomes when you're on your back and you don't, and they say, hey, look, you got 6 weeks to live, all of a sudden things change. You're not as bravado, right?
yeah,
You're the gang member who gets thrown in jail. Now all of a sudden all your friends aren't around you anymore. You lose your protection. Now things are a little different.
yeah, yeah. I think the this time with the Rona is like one of the greatest times for harvest. I mean, people are looking now. They're looking for answers, and they're not getting them, and they're anxious and they're nervous. I mean, it's maybe not as bad as it was 6 months ago, but it's like, man, it's a huge opportunity here for the church to you know, reap a huge harvest, people who are open to it. Because I always go back to the day after, or that weekend after 9/11. I was at a mega church, and they had a huge parking lot. I mean, the thing is
Oh
massive.
yeah, 9/11. That
And
was a huge. I remember that
the
too.
parking
Yeah,
lot
packed.
was packed. Like this thing was like, I'd never seen it that way. And I remember thinking, it's like, man, I hope it stays this way. But people get used to, going back to normal and going back to their thing. It's like, but in that foxhole time, when you know people didn't understand what was going on, and people were afraid, and lost loved ones, and you're seeing this awful things on the news, like people ran into the church. That's where they went. And I think that's why I was so disappointed that there were so many churches that were closed, because I'm a church going guy. I ended up switching churches because my church was closed. I was like, I need to go. So I can't imagine somebody who didn't have that already, like how much they struggled. I mean, we see, the I don't even think all the you might be know more than me, but all the suicide statistics, and people overdosing
Yeah,
and things like
just
that.
overdoses last year. 93,000 people died. 93,000 people, and all those people, they couldn't go to their AA meetings. They couldn't
Mhm.
do, and so you
Right.
have to look at the unintended consequences
Right.
of all these things, and that's critical. And in the church family, yeah, people live so that they can pray for someone or hug someone or spend
Hmm.
time with someone. And when you take that away, that was devastating. I mean, I talked to I see a lot of patients, and that's a mental impact. And I take care of a lot of seniors, and like being isolated was it's hard to explain. Like people don't understand. I mean, you do in your own families, but seeing it day after day, the depression, and people losing their business because they couldn't go to work, and they couldn't,
Right.
like business that's been in the family for 68 years, and all of a sudden it's gone. And then
Just
I've
closing. Yeah.
seen it over and over, and people don't really understand the ramifications of all this stuff. And that's the problem, is those of us who are speaking out, like stuff. And it's like, I'm proud really, because I look back at what I said and I go, look, here's what's coming. And it came. Right.
Hmm.
Not that I knew and I was a problem. I could just, like, common sense wise, I'm
Right.
looking, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
this is not going to be good.
Yeah, I can do 1 + 1, and I can see where this is going. Like, this is not good. I understand that people are relational. People, I guess there's this thing that it's like, oh, if you have a roof over your head and food and money in the bank, that's enough. It's like, no, like you need to see your family. You need to see your friends. You need to hug them. You need to be in communion with us. That's what we were made for. And if you're disregarding that, or if you're cutting those ties, like, people are going to suffer. And people who, like you said, we're already kind of on the edge, like, hey, I'm prone to abuse alcohol, and now I'm not able to go to those meetings so I can be supported, because that's a big thing, right? Like, in your practice, do you guys practice that? It's like, hey, we're doing this low carb thing, we're going to do it together. So it's like
Yeah,
accountability.
we have group meetings, Zoom meetings, and every time people are like, "Thank you for that. That helps me so much." And we
Yeah.
go for group walks. We say, "Hey, let's all go. We're trying to lose weight. Let's all go for a walk together."
Yeah.
And the relationships and the bonds that come out of that, right? It's really amazing to see. We need community. That's
Hmm.
one thing I know for a fact. Seeing it, if it's a Zoom community, whatever, but seeing someone face to face is different. Zoom
Yeah.
is just not the same.
Right.
When someone's crying, you can't comfort them, from a distance. You can say comforting words, but
Yeah.
just to hold someone or hold their hand and say, hey, it's going to be all right, you got this.
Yeah.
There's something to that. And I think as a society, and I think those are the things you step back and think, gosh, we're seeing lawlessness, we're seeing people saying that everyone's racist, but I just don't know those people, honestly.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
see that.
you're in San Diego, right? Like I grew up in LA. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel like I lived Martin Luther King's dream, because my friends were from all backgrounds. It was basically like, hey, I like you, you respect me, you like me, respect me, okay. Like, we didn't care.
You're a
Yeah.
jerk and people don't like you. You're a nice guy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Is like like Martin Luther King said, judge the content of the character,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot, Christians that we just don't connect,
For
right? It's
sure.
just the way it is. And
Yeah.
there's certain people who go, they're in your face and they're like this. Everyone
Yeah.
has to do this. Like, I just don't connect with that. And there's other people who do, and they're like more of the legalistic. That's their
Yeah.
thing. Okay, cool. That's your thing. Do your thing. But
Yeah.
yelling at someone on the street corner is probably not going to say, hey, that's what I want to
Yeah.
do, or say you're an idiot and
That's
you're
the
crazy.
best way.
I think there's ways, but I think just living your life, I think that that's the testimony. I think that is the draw. If people look and they go, okay, let me just assess this guy. Cause when we go through troubled times, people are watching, like,
Mm-hmm.
how'd you deal with that? Like, one of my, as a matter of fact, in my old practice, one of my partners got saved as a result of seeing me and one of my other partners, how we handled that. It's like, we don't want vengeance on this lady. The poor thing stole money. It's like you think what her life is, and you say, let's pray for her. And she blew my partner away, and she became Christian. Now her whole life changed after that
Oh,
too, right? So you go through bad times. Like, why did that happen? Well, that's one good thing that came
that's
out of it.
interesting. So because I mean, there's the verse, right? You don't pay, repay evil. Was it repay evil with good, or you didn't repay evil?
Yeah,
You did good.
honestly, I've never talked to that person again, and I don't have ill will. I go, look, that's a tragic thing, but it brought my family closer together. It made
Mm-hmm.
me say, okay, what matters? Like, making more money, does it really matter? And it
Yeah.
changed me. It made me more like the way I am now. And I think it was something to help me walk away from a lucrative practice and say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're going to step out into the right. You're stepping into the unknown in the middle of COVID, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I've been blessed in this practice. So, it's one of those things where you realize, like, hey, I've lost all my money before, I could do it again. Like, once it happens, like, people who've made it, they'll say, I'll say, why don't you lose all your money? And they go, I'll make it back.
Yeah.
Like, they just know how to do it. They just say, I know how to make it happen. So once you know that, and you can be successful, and I think the racism, really, I think it's that you're telling people that they're inferior to others. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're saying the right white people or I don't care what it is, as soon as you tell a kid or a person, look, you're not as smart as everyone else. If you tell your own kids you're dumb, you can never make it on your own. And I see 50-year-olds or 60-year-olds now that their dad told them they would never make it. So it's affected them. So
Right.
you're a smart guy. What are you talking about? And then they
Yeah.
realize, oh, I am a smart person. Maybe I could study harder and maybe I could do these things, right? So it's hard when you take someone's hope. I think the worst thing you can do is take someone's hope away.
Yeah.
You can take their hope, you can take their faith and criticize them. And I think people of real faith really don't care. I really, it's really funny to me because when people criticize, I really don't care because they don't get it. Like, there's
Yeah.
people who don't understand certain things. Like, you don't understand medicine. So, this is how it works. And I'm seeing the fruit of that. Right. And when you see
Right.
the fruit, then you say, okay, I'm doing something right. Like, for you, like, in what you're doing, I know people are listening to your podcast because it's happened to me when they say, I'm out on my tractor in the middle of Arkansas somewhere. And, like, I listen to you and it gives me hope and it gives me peace. I'm like, that is so awesome to hear. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I'm not thinking about that,
Yeah.
but when you hear it and you go, wow, that really impacts. So stuff you're saying will impact people, right? Stuff you heard on my podcast influence you. And that's the whole point, is like, just take a little piece of those people and spread it out. And then something you say is like, knowing your keys, right? Reading your keys.
Yeah.
You see it and someone goes, reading your keys. That's right. I have to step back and look and watch.
Yeah.
Because if you read your keys, you're looking at body language of people. You look if they're into this conversation, you
Mm-hmm.
go, okay, this guy's not interested. I'm not going to
Yeah.
go there, right?
Yeah.
Whatever, and not force your views or whatever. I think that's the thing. And most guys, and I think a lot of guys are like us. They just go, look, I just want to live my life. I don't want to fight with you. I just want to, and here's what I think is true. And you can think I'm an idiot if you want, but but when it doesn't really matter what they think at some point.
Yeah. I just want to have barbecues and, hang out with my kids, watch football, coach football, and like, I'm good, man. I don't need much.
Yeah, I think that too. It's like, what would you like? Someone asked me that. What would you do if you made like twice as much? I'm like, I really don't know. Probably go on another medical trip. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't need to drive a Ferrari. I drive an old Volt, and it just, I don't need to have a lot. So I think there's,
And I don't think there's anything wrong. I always say I don't think there's anything wrong with people who want, fancy cars and stuff like that. Like I just wasn't wired that. I just wasn't wired.
Yeah,
that
I don't
way.
see any problem with it either.
Yeah.
Go, hey, you like it, but but I'll tell you, and I've told people this, if it comes at the sacrifice, like someone said, how come you're not driving a fancy car? I was like, okay, I could probably drive a Ferrari if I wanted, but it'll come at the cost. I'd have to sell my house. I'd have to spend time with my kids. I'd be working 24/7.
Yeah.
I'd be trying to make money, and I'd be, and one of my mentors said, never allow your lifestyle to dictate how you practice medicine. And I think that was a valuable thing, is to say, don't overspend. Like, these young docs buy all this stuff and then they're like, now I got to pay for it. Okay, I'm gonna work overtime, and they're not there for their kids anymore.
Yeah.
And then that becomes their life, and it's tragic. And doctors have the #1 suicide rate right now.
No
right?
way.
Doctors, the best of the best,
I
the ones who want to help.
I always
people.
heard it was dentists.
It was dentists forever. We passed them up finally. We get our due, right? Because I think at this time it's just so and you look at that, dentists, doctors. I mean, people who they have a lot and they still kill themselves. You see the actors and the big musicians kill themselves, right? You're like, how can that be? They have everything, but they have nothing, right?
Well, Robin Williams was the big one, right? It's like, here's this very funny guy who has it all, right? Like who didn't, enjoy Robin Williams and his work? And it's like, this guy was miserable. Why? All the money,
Yeah.
all the fame, funny, it's like you
Everyone
could
loves him still,
yeah.
and it's a hard, but he had medical stuff, and it's like, your health is the most important thing. And he was declining, and he knew he was going there, and he goes, it's
Oh, I
not
didn't
worth
know
it.
that.
Plus, he struggled with depression. Yeah, he had Parkinson's and dementia, and it's actually a very good documentary about him, and it's very telling. But he was a very kind, decent guy. Like he would go and he would just walk into a comedy club and just get up there and start talking for free and do stuff. And he
Yeah.
was, but struggling with depression, anxiety and but really his memory was shot. He couldn't like it's worth watching
Oh, I
that one.
didn't
I
know
can't
all that.
remember the darn
Man.
title of it, but it's a Robin Williams story. But really, like he couldn't remember his lines. These guys like during Night at the Museum 2 or something, they said
Mm-hmm.
like he couldn't remember his line. He's brilliant, but he couldn't remember his lines. Like they're
Yeah.
trying to read his lines to him before, and he just couldn't do it. They're like, this guy's shot. But
Oh man.
out of respect to him, no one talked about it. Like they kept it quiet, because
Mm.
they said, we don't want him to have to go through all this stuff. But then I think he just came to that realization that I think he just lost hope that he would get better and things would get better. And when that's what I'm talking about, people jump off the bridge when they lose all hope,
Yeah.
right? When you go, nothing's going to get better. Instead of saying, I'm going through a rough spot, and that's where I think faith is so critical at this time, because when you're going through a rough spot, you go, this is a rough spot, but I'll be out of the rough
We all,
spots.
yeah.
All those times, think about everyone. Just reflect on your life.
Mhm.
All those times you thought, "Oh my gosh, if I fail this test, I'm done for. Everything,
Yeah.
my life's ruined." And then you're still here. Everything's okay, right?
What's that poem, the Footsteps poem? I've always loved that poem.
Yeah, I love that
That one
too,
always,
man.
that was, I remember I told my friend, because his mom had it up in their house, and it was like in the hallway. And I like, this was like the friend after football practice, that this is where I would go because I'd wait for my mom to come pick me up or whatever. So I spent a lot of time there. But I always saw that. And it's not in the Bible or whatever, and it's a small thing. Like you don't realize like what you do can impact a kid. Like I always saw that Footsteps poem, like it's like there was the one set of footprints is like that's where you left me. It's like, no, that's where you carried me. And like, I'm like a 15-year-old 16-year-old kid, and I was like, that's
Yeah,
it's
you
not,
get
in the
that.
it's not in the Bible, right? But it's like, that's the God, that's my God, that is my God.
Yeah,
Like
and
you
I think
don't
that's for people who don't know. It's like you see that he's saying that there's two sets of footprints in the sand, and then all the times we went through hard times in life, when he looked back, there's only one set. He's like, "Why'd you leave me at that time?" He said, "I was carrying you." Right.
yeah.
So when you realize that, and I think that's how it is. I think sometimes we have to be carried, and we can't be the tough macho football player guys. There's
Hmm.
times, when you get diagnosed with something bad, and that's why, to me, I say, well, look, faith is inherent in people. I think
Hmm.
it's inherent in people to
It
have some
is.
kind of faith or lack of faith, maybe whatever. But I think when you realize intuitively, okay, when something's bad, I need someone to help me. I need daddy to come help me, right? And
Yeah.
it's funny you
Abba.
brought that up, because in Cuba, that was it. I thought, man, if I was here in Cuba and I got trapped here, my dad would do anything earthly that helped me. He
Hmm.
would sell his stuff. He would do, if he could get me out of there, he would, right?
Hmm.
Because I think once, if you never know what happens. But I'm like, God is so much more powerful than my dad.
Right.
Like God, I can help me anyone. I have a direct line to him
Right.
anytime. So I was like, because I was thinking about, Murph. It's like, if I was somewhere and Murph was with me, I would have zero fear.
Hmm.
Right? Like, Murph, no one
You
is
got
going,
you
you're
got Rambo
protected.
with you.
Yeah, you got Rambo with you, and you go, okay, look, right? I'm like, I'm not worried, but I'm like, God is so much more powerful than any bodyguard or anyone else you could have around you. So when you
Hmm.
walk into a situation, like when I walked into that MS-13 neighborhood,
Yeah.
I was protected and I felt it. I had zero fear. And Mark, who was fearful of going, goes, I felt at peace there. So when you're
Yeah.
walking through, where they go run to the door because you can get shot from here from 10 feet getting in there, right? But,
Yeah.
and I knew I was under the protection of the pastor because he's so well respected. No one was mess with you there,
Hmm.
right? So I think there's certain things, that you have certain protections, and it takes that fear. I think living in fear is the worst thing. I think Corona made people fearful, and I'm like, respect it, but don't live in fear. Don't sleep under your
Hmm.
bed every night because you're afraid it's
Right.
going to get you. And I think, and again, a lot of people go, how can you believe it's something you can't see? I was like, how can you fear something you can't see? You can't see Corona. You
Right.
can't see it with your eyes. It's there, and
Yeah.
it's there. So it's
Exactly.
like, what's different between me and you?
Right. Like, yeah, you see the results. You see the results of it all around you, right? Like, yeah, you see people who catch it. You see them get sick. Well, it's like I see the results of I see the fruit of my faith. I see it all around me. I see God's fingerprints and things because I'm paying attention. And maybe part of that is a gift. So I'm always kind of aware of that. And I've said this multiple times, but it's like, I know I had a I had a great father. I have a wonderful father. He's a sweet man, the loving man. And so not it was not difficult for me to make the leap from my father on earth to my father in heaven, because I had a good father. But I do realize that not everybody had that opportunity. And so I feel like I've been able to be more gracious, because I grew up in the church, quote unquote. Like, I wasn't like Saturday night going to, Bible study as a teen. It was just like, no, this is just this, like, I carry this with me. I believe it's true. But I was the type, is like, if you didn't measure up to here, then I would let you know, and I would cut you down. And that's one of the things about being young, is that you can be very I guess maybe aggressive is the word, but you cut people down, and not realize that you're working against what you think you're trying to accomplish. Because it was just kind of like how I was, like, for me, it was always like, I'm a regular dude, why can't you do what I can do if I'm just a regular guy? Like, why don't you see what I see? It's like, no, you grew up in a good house, you had a good father, you have these things. It's like, okay, maybe I give some people some grace. Like,
Yeah, you have a different worldview or different world life
yeah,
experience. And I
yeah.
get it why some people say everyone's racist, because that may have been their experience. I
Mhm.
get that. But I mean, like, when you step back, you say, well,
Yeah,
I mean, most people aren't inherently bad, I don't think.
yeah.
I mean, I think we are inherently bad. I would say that. Yeah, I've been corrected on that.
Uh-huh.
Because we're selfish and we want all these things for ourselves when we're a baby, and that we're just naturally like that. But you
Hmm.
need someone to come up and go, hey, look, man, you can't just, it's not all about you. And I think
Hmm.
that's a big thing, is when you think the whole universe revolves around you, then you got a problem, right? And when it's
Yeah.
all about you and your accomplishments, and puffing your chest out and criticizing everyone else, and it's like, well, I got my shortcomings, we all have our shortcomings in life, and you go, I'm not very good in this area, I can't, this frustrates me. But other people go, why did that frustrate you? I go, it just does, I don't know, it just does,
Yeah.
right?
There's
And there's
certain
certain
things that
things
push
that don't bug
buttons.
you that make other people crazy. I'm like, oh, it doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
There's certain things. And it's funny, it's just, I don't know if you saw Conor McGregor's fight when he broke his leg. I'm like, I can't watch that. And all my friends are like, come on, just check it out. I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
I just can't
Yeah.
watch it. He goes, you're a doctor. I'm like, I can see things after it happens, but I don't like that. I don't like to see
Yeah.
someone get hurt. And so, yeah, it's weird how life is. But man, this hour went by too quick, dude.
It's been an hour already.
You believe that? I'm like bummed. But man, what's life's best medicine for you? That's what this podcast is about. Like, what wisdom can you give to someone? If you have a kid here and you go, look, man, here's what matters, here's what's important, or you have someone that you really want to instill something, like some life lessons and things that have really impacted you along the way and put you on the journey that you're on now.
I think there's a few things. Like, I always think that God put us on here for a reason. Like, it's not a coincidence that you were born in the time that you were born, in the body that you were born into the family that you're born into. Like, those things, they're not coincidental. So, ask for wisdom to figure out, why it is that you're here. And the other thing too, the now that I'm trying more new things. Like, the podcast to me was something I like, way out of my comfort zone. I'm a really private person. I'm very private. I don't like telling anybody any of my business. Like, I'm very private. And I like what I like. So it's like, once I find what I like, it's like, I'm good. I don't need to open up any doors. But if you're, I guess, like, if you're built like me, try new things, put yourself out there to figure out, ways that God can use you, because you don't know how you can be used. Like, you're if you stay in your comfort zones, there's no places for God to do miracles for you. It's when you get out of your comfort zone, that's when the adventure begins. And I'm in a season right now. I have young children, and things are the same a lot, because it's like, I got kids to take care of. But if you let it, if you're open to it, it can be a great adventure.
Yeah, amen, man. That's so true. Like, you step out of your comfort zone. That glory comes on the other side of discomfort usually,
Hmm.
and really experiencing life. I think that's it. It's like there's a difference between living life and, for me, it's funny when you're talking, I'm thinking, me too. I don't like doing podcasts. It wasn't my thing. And I'm
Hmm.
like, someone asked me to do a podcast. I'm like, you're nuts. I would that. And then I brought in Tro to help me, because we're different personality types.
Yeah.
And so I think it's but I think I've been around enough to have some wisdom and to see stuff. It's like, darn it, people need to hear some of these stories. Your
Yeah.
story needs to get out there, and people's
Yeah.
stories, because there's a lot of regular guys out there going, maybe I should go to church. Maybe I should just go try it out.
Yeah.
Maybe then you meet cool guys. You go, there's actually cool people here. They're not all like stuffy, you know, because I can see it. You have a certain image of your head. Because for me, I didn't grow up in the church.
Yeah.
So like people that invite me to church, like, yeah, no thanks. I don't want to have to
hang out with
dress up
those
and
nerds.
like, dude, I would rather be my like sleep in and take it easy, right?
Yeah.
But I had people that over years say, hey, can I pray for you? Hey, can I help you?
Yeah.
Hey, you know, and like, he need help. Can I? I'm like, why are you helping me? And like, you know, and those kind of things. When you see people's kindness, like people get that kindness.
Yeah.
Never like people say, hey, he's too kind. I don't know. But there are people like I can see guys that are really happy all the time. Like people are like, oh no, here comes that happy Christian guy,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with this guy right now. And I've been around people like that. I was like, not right, not today, man. I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
deal
Yeah.
with you, right? You're too happy.
Yeah.
But you know, you'd rather be around happy people than grumpy, miserable, complaining people.
Right.
So yeah, and I think, you know, I think there's so much wisdom in this hour, man. I just really appreciate you coming on, and you know, and having young kids, it's a new responsibility, and you realize like I got to be the dad. And I'm like so happy that your kids have you. And I say, listen, if you're a young dad listening, these are the important things. You need to instill this in your kid, that they're loved, that they're cared for, that they're important, that they can accomplish in life, that they're not going to be held back because of the color of their skin or what they believe, right? And that's the thing is you know, allowing them to go free and to be free, and for you to be that example of God's love. Really, I mean, that's really the love of the Father. Was when I was in Cuba, that was the theme of my whole trip, was like the love of the Father, like a father loving his. And you know, I had this thing, and I talked to a pastor, and he, you know, he was all stressed out, and it was a weird thing because I don't even speak the language very well, but he was a new father, and his dad died when he was young. So he was thinking, how can I be a father when I never had a father? Right. Even though he's a youth pastor, he goes, but that's different than your own kids. And then, you know, I said, it's the love of the Father, man. You know, the love of the Father, and you can give that to your kids. And like, he was like on his knees crying, right? Because he needed that word. He needed someone to say, you got this, you know the Father, don't worry, you can do this. So I think all those things in life, and like you said too, I think there's so many important points, but putting your arm around someone and saying, hey, look, let's walk through this. Let me help you. Let me like help you read your keys. Right. And I think that's why I love your podcast of saying, hey, read your keys. You know, you may not have the perfect hand, but read your keys, read the cues, look and see if someone else is going to fold. Maybe you hold your hand a little longer. Right.
Yeah.
So I think like Tyler will tell you that. So I think it's just really, you know, life's journey, and you go, how do I best navigate this journey? And for us, it happens to be faith. So, you know, and it's so great to talk to you about that, because a lot of us don't want to talk about it because it's not a cool thing to have faith these days.
No, and I think people don't want to look like a fool, right? But I've had this realization within like the last year. It's like, I do some pretty foolish things anyway, so why don't I just be a fool for God? How about that? How about I try that?
Yeah, he always kind of pulls us out of being foolish, man. It's like, yeah, I can't worry about getting everything right because I know I'm not going to, so I don't worry about being a perfectionist. That's a curse in itself. It's hard being OCD and obsessive with stuff. And, you know, so I think sometimes you just have to take a breath and sit there and go, okay, God, today's going to be a rough day. I'm going to need your hand through this one, or this patient's going to be hard, or this situation I'm in. And so sometimes realizing it's not on your own wisdom. And I think, you know, leaning on guys like you for wisdom, go, okay, I'm going through a hard time. How would you handle this? Right. To have good, you know, a lot, and that's the danger of isolation, especially in men. Isolation is the kiss of death. If someone doesn't show up, if someone misses a bunch of clinic appointments with me, I know they're off the rails, right? So I have to reach out to them. It's the same thing in a men's group and all that, because my friends who've gone off the rails as Christians, it's because they do their own thing and they go, I don't want to talk about it with my friends, right? They don't ask for wise counsel, like, oh, this lady wants to have lunch with me. What do you think? Not a good idea. Don't do it, man, right? You know, it's certain things like that where you have people who've been around that go, don't do it, man. I'm telling you. So I think as we get older, we start getting this. You're a young guy and you still get it, so that's all good. But you know, it's good. But it's good to know. I mean, I think knowing that these younger generations, that you're going to raise your kids to be decent, kind. How do you have a better society? You have dads in the society that love their kids, really. I think, and moms too, but dads in particular really do. Oh, my alarm's going off. I'm supposed to wake up now, man. So
sorry.
But anyways, hey man, thanks so much for joining me. Everyone, thanks for listening. I think this is gonna impact people, really. So Joel, hey, tell people how to find you, where to best track you down, and what you're doing, man.
You can find the podcast. It's the Read Your Keys podcast. That's on Spotify, iTunes. It's on YouTube now too, so you can find it on YouTube. And I'm pretty active on Twitter at Real Joel Lopez, I think is my handle. And yeah, those are the four places that you can find me. So reach out to me, comment. I'm a little crazy on Twitter, but it's kind of how God built me. So
No, you're awesome,
A
man. Love your
word of
stuff. I've
warning.
always, it's awesome, man. It's fun. And we'll go, let's do this. Okay, how about tomorrow, 5:30? Okay, cool. Like it's awesome, man. So, anyways, hey everyone, hey, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I hope this impacts you. I hope there's someone out there. I know you're listening now, and you're gonna say, hey, maybe I should go to church. Maybe I should call my Christian friend or whatever friend and just reconnect, and I think life's too short, everyone. Really, like be kind, be decent, never allow, you walk out of the house angry, just say, hey, I love you. We'll talk about it tonight, even if you're in a conflict, right? So I think it's really important. Love your kids. That's the manly thing to do. And, stand up for what you believe. Don't look around and say, am I the only one seeing it this way? Sometimes when you say, hey, does anyone else see it this way? You'll be surprised at how many people see it the same way as you do. And help your friends, help your neighbors. And, I think we're doing a lot of good stuff. So keep it up. God bless. Have a great week. Hey everyone, I wanted to let you know about an upcoming conference that really had a huge impact on me, that's helped me on my journey and helped me to really understand metabolic health and what we're doing to make people healthier. And so I have my friend Doug Reynolds, who's the boss, who's putting on this conference. So Doug, tell us about the conference that's coming up, Low Carb USA, San Diego. I love it because it's right next to my house and I get to sleep in my own bed and come, but maybe I get to stay in a hotel this time. I don't know. And I get to speak. So man, it's awesome that we get to all meet up together and build community. We all know how important that is. So Doug, welcome. Tell people about what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Brian. It's really exciting to be able to do it in person again. I think there's so many people out there that are just clamoring to be able to talk to people again and give someone a hug and just collaborate like has become so predominant in all the other events that we've done before this COVID thing hit. One of the things that's come up since when COVID hit, we couldn't do it. So then we flipped over and did virtual versions of the San Diego event and the Boca one. And we had a lot of people actually sign up and become a part of that. And so what it has done for us now is make us understand that the live stream component can be very effective for people that can't make it to the event. So this is the proper live event. And I think I want to make this very clear to people that I think they think it's like, so many people have asked how many of the talks are going to be virtual and how many are going to be in person. And the answer is every single one is going to be in person. So we will have a live stream component. People will be able to access it via live stream, but all the speakers will be there in person. Anybody that hasn't been able to make it obviously just hasn't made it into the lineup. And I think that's really important, and it's really exciting that we've got all of these people coming out. And some really good names, Gary Taubes has been a stalwart with us. He's like always supported us. The first guy to say, let's do this. You obviously, Rob Sivers, Tro, Tony Hampton, Brett Scher, Dr. Ben, Amy Berger, Diana Rogers. I'm really excited that she's, on the sustainability side. I'm really excited that she's able to make it this time. We've been trying to get her to an event of ours for a while. And this is the first time. Andrea Salcedo is a really, really amazing. She did one of the Grand Rounds talks for our SMHP. And she's a gynecologist. We've had a lot of comments from people from the feedback forms and stuff saying that you should get a gynecologist in. So now we have. Michelle Hearn was a potentially Olympic athlete who just like crashed and burned on carbs, and she's a dietitian, and she found keto and eventually basically carnivore, and it's cured her to the extent where she's training for the Olympics again. But she wrote this book called Dietitian's Dilemma, because everything that she'd learned as a dietitian she wasn't doing anymore in order to make herself healthy again. And so it's really cool to have a real dietitian's perspective of the problems that they have. She's basically left that vocation because she just couldn't function in the hospital environment, and that where she was. She was not allowed to speak to people about low carb. And so that's a fascinating story. Dr. Gurpreet Pada, I think you might have even had him on.
Yeah, he's doing amazing stuff with pain
Yeah,
management.
he's just
and
one of the
building
most incredible people.
Yeah,
It's
amazing.
Marco Casella is, I don't think,
He's a
anybody at
legend.
least in this one.
Yeah,
he
he's a
is
legend. I worked with him in deprescribing the textbook chapter, and he's phenomenal. And
He
he's
absolutely
struggled with metabolic disease, even though he's a long distance runner, and he was able to get soda out of the hospitals he's affiliated with, and that's a huge task.
Yeah,
that's a huge money maker. So yeah, so many great people, and I think the big thing is just being able to sit down. I know. For me, being at Low Carb USA, the first time I was able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with some great leaders that were just there, and they just are there to talk. And so there's so much great information. Anyone else we need to talk about, Doug?
Well, Steve Finney is the latest addition to the lineup. I've been chatting with him for a while now. Managed to get him on board. Dave Feldman as well. He wasn't sure if he was going to be able to talk because of this research that he's got going on, that he might not have been able to actually speak in public. Arthur Agathen, I think, is going to be fascinating. I did a podcast interview with him the other day. I didn't even know until very recently, but he's the guy that discovered or defined the calcium score. It's actually known as
his name.
Yeah.
And the South Beach diet. He's done so much work. I mean, he's always trying to make people healthy. He's doing a lot. Yeah. So yeah, it's just great the amount of talent you pulled in, and
we've got amazing. The whole, for those people that know about the SMHP, which is kind of the other hat that I put on, the other organization that I run, that nonprofit, pretty much the entire board of directors for that is going to be at this event, either speaking or at least present. And then, the other committees, we've got the panel of advisors for the clinical guidelines. You're on that panel. It's just, there are so many, it's just going to be so many fascinating conversations that are going to go on over that weekend. I can't wait.
Yeah, and it's just, and you're also bringing a lot of vendors, like Keto Mojo is always there, and a lot of good people. Yeah. And so try different products, and there's some great Restore program who's doing some great work through your program and really getting it out to the masses. There's so many great people coming out, so I would highly recommend it. And I worked out a deal with Doug because I want people that, sometimes finance is a issue for people. So I said, Doug, look, my people need a discount, our people need a discount, so what do you work out for us, Doug?
So yeah, we've got it. If you use the code low carb MD, it gives you 20% off and it's not just the ticket. For those people that sign up for the dinners, for those people that require a CME certificate, whatever they add, whatever their purchase is, the total amount, that 20% comes off that total. In the past, when we gave discounts, it came just off the ticket price. But it's not that great a guy. It's actually just that it's easier for me to manage. To take it off the total, but yeah, as a result, everyone else scores, right? So
that helps too. And then, is that for people who come in person and online also?
Correct. Yeah. Right. So whatever is in your cart, basically, that discount comes off the total. And the other thing is, one of the options in the upgrade options. So if you only buy the ticket now, you can upgrade and buy the VIP dinners later if you want to join us. Or you can, if you signed up for the live stream and you wanted to upgrade to in person, because now you realize, hey, everybody's traveling and actually I think I can do this. Then you can still use that code on your upgrade options as well. So you can still get 20% off. If you decide later. So if you buy the live stream and later, in beginning of August, you decide you want to actually come in person, you can utilize that code again then for the upgrades, and they'll apply, which doesn't happen for anybody else. So.
And what are the dates?
26th to 29th of August.
Awesome. And it'll be live. And if you want to stay in your hotel, I think, can you live stream it from your computer wherever you're at?
Yeah, so that's the thing, is it didn't used to be like that either, but I think every time we do this, we improve it. So now somebody that's in person has access to the live stream as well. So if they if they want to watch part of it, you know, in their room or something, they can. We would really prefer that they come down and you know, sit in the audience. But if for some reason that's not possible, they can watch it, or they miss something, they can go and watch. They can go back and watch that evening or something. They can, you know, watch a talk that they missed or something like that. And then they get access. They get access to those recordings after the event, and then within about 2 weeks, we normally are able to get all the individual videos of the talks populated on that site as well, and they have access to that forever. So
yeah, it's great education. I think being able to, because even being there, I've had times where I want to interview someone or just spend time with someone because they're coming from South Africa or something, and I miss a talk, and I was like, oh shoot, I want to see that one. And so it really does free you up to say, okay, I'll hybrid. You can sit and go down. You can talk to people. You can, you know, watch it later that night or on the weekend, because a lot of us are really busy. So that is outstanding. I'm really glad. That's a huge improvement for sure. And you know, and some of those talks you're going to want to watch it a couple times to make sure you absorb it all, so you don't have to feel like you have to take notes. And Doug hates people taking pictures in the meetings, and because it's distracting, you know, for people behind them. So you'll have access to the talk, the PowerPoints and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's really huge. So hey, everyone, thank you. I think this is a huge thing. The reason I had Doug on, we have no financial interests. You know, it's really just because I know the benefit of this and how it can help people trying to live a better life and getting on track. And I know it helped me immensely and changed the course of my life, really. So Doug, thanks for all you're doing and continue to do. And you're making a massive impact. So Low Carb USA San Diego, I would highly recommend everyone come out.
Appreciate that, Brian. And thank you for what you're doing. I mean, it all started at one of our meetings many years ago, but I'm so glad that you made it to that meeting, because you're doing great things now too. Thank you.
Hey, I get some good South African food out of it sometimes, so it's all good. So hey, everyone, hey, thank you for listening, and thank you for your continued support. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. You know, have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.